with what obstacles you put in place to prevent moments like this from ever transpiring, or to make the road as arduous, as unnecessarily arduous as it was. We don't get to talk about that if we don't acknowledge the fact that it's an aberration that this has happened. Because we know, based on the example that you just gave us, Coach, as it pertained to Tony Dungy being a quarterback, but he was so athletic, you need to be a wide receiver and stuff like that. He ain't the only person that happened to. They questioned whether Warren Moon could be a quarterback. They questioned whether a host of individuals, even Donovan McNabb, was getting resistance when he was a quarterback. Don't get me started with Randall Cunningham. Okay, Dante Culpepper has talked about that in the past, and a host of other people along the way. From an historical perspective, what we have is a situation where, as black men, what we want to do is have such a level of normalcy that something doesn't have to be addressed. But to me, what I like about being able to highlight that quote-unquote aberration is that it should have never been an aberration at all. We had the ability, we had the intellect, we had the intestinal fortitude and then some to always be in this position. But one obstacle after another was put in place. And you know this better than me, Coach, because you lived through it. You're older than me, more experienced than me. You've seen it firsthand. So when I think about, let's say, for example, a Herm Edwards and whatever obstacles you endured, I can read about it, I can hear about it, but you lived it. And I think it's a testament to your greatness, to the greatness of Tony Dungy, to the greatness of all of those who came. By the way, just because they're in the media now, I wasn't good enough to be a professional athlete, okay? You guys were. But you're doing what I do now. If it weren't for y'all and what y'all had to endure, I wouldn't be where I am today. It's Black History Month. We got Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we got Malcolm X, we got a host of others. And doing what they did enabled us to be sitting here today. To me, I love the fact that we get to highlight this is an aberration. And you know why it's an aberration? Because this is what was done to us. Because we got a host of people in America that want us to forget history. We got a situation going on in Florida right now where you got the governor opposing African-American studies. It's more complicated than that. I'm not trying to simplify it, but that's the bottom line. And when you have stuff like that going on, and then all of a sudden, you fast forward to here and now with two African-American quarterbacks. What we're doing is utilizing them to illuminate a heinous, insidious, disgusting part of our history that marginalized, that pigeonholed, and flat out denied folks the opportunity to ever be in this position. But because of people like you, Coach, and Tony Dungy, and those who came before you, because of that collective effort is why we're sitting here today. So I'm not one of those people that says, well, you know what? Hey, I wish we didn't have to sit here in the year 2023 and not bring up that it's two black quarterbacks. Hell yes, I'm bringing it up. Because guess what? They're a testament to the greatness that existed before them that America tried to ignore and denied, but couldn't pull it off. That's me. That's where I'm coming from.
Stephen A., you make some great points, and I'm not disappointed. It's more of I reflect on my career coming in.
If Mahomes didn't even play in this Super Bowl, he said, you know, I'm retiring right now, I'd have him in my top 5 all time.
I just can't.
I got no problem with that.
Okay. Not
Here's the problem.
Not gonna
he has him second to Tom Brady.
That's
and then he has John Elway, Peyton Manning, and Dan Marino. But what he doesn't have, who he doesn't have, is possibly the greatest of all time, Joe Montana. You know, the guy who Tom Brady eventually took the title from as the GOAT due to his longevity, not because he was better at his peak, but longevity, is Joe Montana.
How does Key, wait a second, because I was on First Take yesterday. I did not hear this conversation because I plugged in late.
Clearly, you wasn't paying attention.
Well, no, I don't pay attention until I'm on air. Why?
Why did I let him get away with that?
What is going on?
I didn't let him get away with it at all. As soon as he broke down the list and unveiled the list of the whole deal, and I looked because in my mind I had already calculated who the QBs were going to be. And, I just let him finish, and I shredded him to pieces. And I just kind of, it was exhausting listening to Dan, and I love Dan. Me and Dan work together every single week, multiple times. And his argument was he never saw Joe play. Joe would pass. He started going to statistics. You know about statistics in me. I don't care about statistics. Doesn't mean anything. Everybody played at a different era and all of that sort of stuff. They throw the ball all over the lot right now. If I played in this era, I have 18,000 yards in 2 seasons because they throw the ball, no one gets touched. It's a totally different situation. And I tried to explain that to him. He put Marino on this. I'm like, dude, do you not understand that Joe Cool beat Marino, beat him down in the Super Bowl? He combined his Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes threw more in 2 games and this, that, and the other than he had in his 4 Super Bowls. And I'm like, dude, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's 4 and freaking 0. So I tried to give him a different perspective because he claimed he never saw Joe play, but he saw Marino and Elway. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
All the winning
if you saw Joe, Dan, and John play, that's the same era.
Right.
Even if you didn't see Joe 2 years before you start watching, it's the same era. So I don't understand how you can have Elway, and he's Elway, I would have him on this list. I'm like, Elway went to so many Super Bowls. Like, stop. And it was like a whole deal. And in the end, I just gave up. And so you may remember this dude, Max. You remember Jeff Katz?
Yeah, of course.
So Katsy, I hadn't talked to Katsy forever.
Film guy who does sports talk radio too, yeah.
And Katsy emailed me. Katsy, he emailed me late last night because I was doing this shoot or whatever here, and he just blankly said, that's the most insane, you fill in the blank, thing I've ever heard in my life. That guy should be, you fill in the blank, immediately. Blankety, 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 blank. I can't believe this is outrageous. Makes 0 sense. Wow.
Hey, I want to get it. Hold on. I want to get it. Let's back up on Montana for 1 second. Because it's easy to say, stats and the game has changed and blah, 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 and go to stats, right? But if you do, you got to know how to look at stats. You look at what he was doing in his era, not just the raw numbers, but where it ranked, right? So perfect in the Super Bowl, 4-0. 13 TDs, no interceptions. But, guys, he led the league in completion percentage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different times. 5 different seasons. He led the league in, the West Coast offense, blah, blah. Okay, fine. He benefited from it. Yes, that's part, just like Tom Brady benefited from Belichick and vice versa. And this went, and Mahomes benefits from Andy Reid and vice versa. He led the league in touchdowns twice, in touchdown percentage twice. And then, the eyeball test. Come on. But here, more than that, you can look at, MVP finishes. Right? He won 2 MVPs. He came in second. I'm looking at it right now once. He came in third one. If you look at the way he was perceived in his era, where he ranked, it was at the top. In addition to the fact that he might be the greatest postseason player in the history of football.
But this is wild to me. So the methodology is that since Dan didn't see it, Key, then, he can't recognize the greatness of it. So I've never seen Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but I know that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is like with Michael Jordan or LeBron James, one of the greatest players to ever play the game. I've never seen Oscar Robinson play the game, but I know Big O is one of the best point guards we've ever had in the history of the league. Right. Just from looking at it and watching tape on it, and that's all Dan Orlovsky does is watch tape.
And on top of that, the gold standard for the position was Joe Montana.
Yes.
Yeah. When you talk about it, before Tom Brady went to 10 and won 7, all we talked about was the greatest quarterback in the history of the game was Joe Cool.
Yeah.
We never said, Dan Marino was the greatest quarterback in the history of the game.
What people did say about Marino
was he had a strong arm. I get all that.
Yes.
He went early.
And maybe if he was in Montana's situation.
I get all of that.
But
like Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith.
But he wasn't.
Exactly.
Right. And so in the end, Dan got it completely wrong. And on top of that, you got Patrick Mahomes too. Now, if you decided To take Patrick Mahomes and put him at 5 and bump Dan down because he didn't win a Super Bowl and Joe Montana beat him, and it certainly looks like